And I just want to see if I had that.
Yeah.
Share
Do you want to give your contact information to the video audience?
Sure.
I play this on live radio as well, so can you say it as well?
Oh, yes, I'd be glad to. I recommend people come to my blog. It's called theyflyblog.com. Theyflyblog.com. I have a website which hasn't been anywhere near as frequently updated since about 2015, but there's lots of nifty information there. It's simply called theyfly.com. And you can subscribe, you know how you do that from these, especially to the blog, to the RSS feed. And there's just a ton of stuff here for you. So it's all free there. Yes, if you want to buy anything, great, that's fine. But you'll find so much free information that you can warm up to finding out if you want any other stuff. If you want to study the creation energy teaching, the spiritual teaching, and to learn more about that, that's great. You know, of course. And we welcome that. There are study groups all over the world, actually, including people in Canada, of course. And I will be emailing you contact info for the good folks up in Toronto who will be delighted to provide you with anything you need and want about it, okay? So please feel free to follow up with them as well. They have wonderful videos and books and all sorts of stuff. So I'm here now. If this is a time that you might want to have any, you know, questions and answers, or at least attempt.
Yeah, sure. There's what 16 of us here.
Oh, okay.
We can open up. Maybe I'll be rude and be first. I'm wondering how do you pronounce Plejarians? And I want, are Plejarians the same as Pleiadians, and are they the same as the White Nordics?
Okay. So the word, I'll start with the beginning, I'll reverse the order of that. Pleiadian is a screen name that Billy Meier was asked to use. I believe it was perhaps in January of 1975, when he had his beginning of his official contacts, meaning from here on, what we talk about, photographs, etc., that's all public. Billy, you publish it all. So he says, well, why are you calling yourselves Pleiadians? There's no life in the Pleiades, and your people, you call yourselves the Plejars or Plejaren, because you live in the system called the Plejaren. They said, well, we want to explain that. Now that you are going to be publishing everything, it'll go worldwide, and there will be people that will come out of the woodwork. They're going to claim that they're channeling Pleiadians, meeting with Pleiadians, dating Pleiadians, having Pleiadians babe, and you will know as soon as they mention the term Pleiadian that they are self-identifying as liars, because none such exists, right? He said, oh yeah, very clever, I'll do that. So they lifted that, you know, I think maybe 1998 or so. They said, well, just go ahead now and use the term. So it's pronounced Plejaren because the J is pronounced more like a Y here, as it is in some other languages. Plejaren. And you find that there's Barbara Marciniak and Barbara Hanclau and all these people. Same thing with, you know, the great whites and the Nordics. I mean, I thought a great white was a shark. Okay, Nordics. So these people make these claims. Well, everybody that's out in ufology, believe me, whether they admit it or not, they've looked at the Meier material, and a lot of them have drawn whatever they can from it and changed it. The story of Alex Collier, I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of a guy named Alex Collier. He's the guy who actually gave me the first 1,800 pages of transcripts in '86 of Meier's conversations, except his name isn't Alex Collier. It's Ralph Amagran. He was a retired IRS agent, he claimed. He was going broke shortly after I talked to him, and he invented a new career and personality for himself. He'd read all the material he gave me. So he suddenly became Andromedan contactee. Nobody is capable. Billy cannot communicate directly with the Andromedans. They showed up in light ships. I didn't show the photos, but they showed up in these weird light ships. It's one way. They can't be, you're not going to have a conversation with anybody. That's another matter. So nobody on Earth is having contacts and conversations with any extraterrestrials unless they can prove it, which is fine with me. I don't care. I get the value out of having spent 42 years digging into this, taking the time, trouble, and expense to go to Switzerland 20 times, make 5 documentaries about it, try to trick Meier 4 times, pardon me, in 3 years about something he said. And I found it's all true, it's all accurate. I've talked to eyewitnesses to 14 of the 23 attempts in his life. Guy doesn't hide anything. He doesn't go out to talk about it, publishes his information. So with that being said, no Pleiadians. I don't know of any great whites and Nordics because nobody has any evidence. They have conversations about it. Make up anything you want. And they're called the Plejaren. So again, you don't have to believe any of that. I don't believe it. I know some things, but I always say this, according to the information in the case, I say that when I don't have a means of proving or disproving something. So if somebody says, well, can you prove that there's no Nordics? No. Of course, you don't prove negatives. You say, can you prove that there are? Can you prove what Billy says about the genetic mutations to human races in the Syrians? No, that's millions of years. No. Can you prove what he said about the coming San Francisco earthquake? That the investigators saw the 11 photographs he took in the future of it? No, I didn't see those photographs, and they're gone. We have the reports, but we won't know unless or until, of course, that quake happens. But the descriptions of those cars, you know, in there in 1978, when they described the cars in the future that don't have outside rear view mirrors and they have a lot of glass and stuff, doesn't it sound awfully similar to what's being developed by Toyota and Musk there and Tesla and Mercedes-Benz and everybody else? A couple of years to go and those are on the streets. Don't you think maybe it's interesting that in 78 they're describing that? So I've never found an inaccurate, where you can test it, no inaccurate information. According to the information of the case.
So what's the group that Billy's in touch with then personally? Is it the Plejarens?
That's the primarily one. There are a couple other races.
Well, what do they look like? What do they look like?
Like we do. They look like human beings of Earth. He has met people that are representative of the white race, what we would call Negroid races, Asian race, people that look more like Mediterranean, meaning more of an olive skin color. You met the little, people there, not the Timbers, the folks with the greenish skin, So he says, well, we at least have the handprints. Linda Moulton Howe, that great investigator, contacts me around that time, said, gee, those handprints are interesting. Can we bring scientists to look? And Billy said, yeah, you can tell them, they can bring them, just don't destroy the cars. There were 2 cars at the time, actually. She never came. Why? Well, you think that she's going to ruin her career babbling about imaginary alien abductions and mutations to go and report on this, and suddenly she's got no more part of it? Or is she going to turn her bucks for him? Sorry, we're not coming. So she didn't even bother to say that. She just didn't show up or even ask for a date. So I'm cynical about that stuff, I think, with good reason. This is too important. If what I've said, if what this information that you've seen is, if that's true, that all of these people have suppressed the only real, and that would be the most important true information, discovery, event, development in human history and science, existence and contact with an extraterrestrial, and they suppress it so they can babble about stuff that's all lies? Call me foolish.
Should we open up to more questions? How about maybe
I have a request for you. Sure. I would like, we have a YouTube channel. It's called Vancouver UFO on YouTube. And we have some testimony there from some of our people in our group. And there's someone particularly, her name is Crystal. And she has photographs. She has a lot of proof. So I'm not meaning to argue with you. No, to me, anybody who says this is the only truth, this is the only man, this is the only anything, I really have to be careful with that, because there's billions of people on Earth.
Right.
If the Pleiadians or Plejarians are contacting people, there's no reason why they wouldn't be contacting many thousands of people,
Well,
right?
let me answer that. No, not right. But let me give you the explanation. Again, we don't have an argument. We're just working towards truth. And by the way, just
no, for sure.
if Crystal has, someone will send me a link. I'll look. I'll forward it to people. I don't have an objection. I don't care if there were 100 people on contact. Look, I received information from the Plejaren that turned out to be prophetically accurate. A couple of occasions, forwarded through Billy. They don't contact me. So to answer the question, of course, other people know. And the reason there aren't is very simple. Did you ever play the telephone game as a child? I hear that.
Yes.
Hey, they know that game has created religions on earth that do not present the truth. I'm sorry, and people are entitled to your beliefs, but they're still beliefs. If they were all true, any of them, they'd be the one real religion. But they're all the one real religion, and they all rest on this premise. What's in this book is true because this book says it's true. That's not scientific. Now, whatever. I have good religious friends. I'm not religious. That's fine. They don't contact in their epochs because the 6 prophets before Billy that they contacted, they also didn't contact other people because they had to find one person who had the requisite intelligence, strength of character to withstand what would be thrown at him, as Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, and Muhammad did before. Wait, who's Emmanuel? Well, here's a harsh truth in this case.
That would be Jesus, right?
Yes, because there was no Jesus. And if anybody, not trying to offend anybody, but if anybody disagrees with that, all you have to do is send me 1 or 2 books, not religious books, biographies of Jesus Christ who lived in that area where there were at least 60 biographers living in the overall area, not a one of whom, to my knowledge, ever mentioned a guy named Jesus Christ. Now, in the Old Testament, Isaiah 7:14, I think maybe Isaiah 8, 10, and 14 for sure, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. Matthew 1:23, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. The Talmud of Emmanuel, it's a whole story of how Meier and a former Greek Orthodox priest found these 2,000-year-old scrolls in an ancient cave on the outskirts of Jerusalem. You talk about the Meier case and you're pulling a thread that unravels human history literally. Now, why don't all these people that claim they're being, why would they? Why would these people who have started to meet with this Edward Albert Meier at the age of 5, 79 plus years, what do they need somebody else? If this guy's doing it, if he's willing, if they tell him 10 years before it happens, by the way, Billy, you're going to lose your left arm and there's nothing we can do about it. All right, let me out of here. I'm out of this gig. No? Okay, fine, thank you. I'll forget about it until then. Literally, he just pushes the things that have happened to this man, the attempts to kidnap his children at knife point, the 23 attempts on his life. Do you think any people, the Pleiadians and Plejaren they're meeting with me too. I'm fine. Crystal, anybody else, just forward the stuff. I'm not going to attack you for it. I'm going to see what we can do with that. Maybe there's something here we don't know about. But my other part of my mind says, with this volume of information, 45,000 pages still in German, maybe 5,000 pages in English, what do we need? It isn't about them, it's about us. We have to embody that which we think these people who aren't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, simply far more advanced.
Michael, just one more thing, because I'm going to have to leave in 10 minutes. And I've really enjoyed your talk. And thank you so much for giving so much. It's a very interesting case. You know, I've always been interested in this case, and I'd like to ask you actually to come back after we've done some research.
Yes.
And some other research, so we can actually talk to you about it. I would like you to recommend to me what would be the best book for me to read about from Billy Meier or about him. What would be the best book so we could discuss
Okay.
something a
Sure.
little bit more focused next time.
This is great because there's two things involved here. Reading about Billy Meier and the best book for, let's say, spiritual teaching things. If we just wanted to focus on just the best book, when I say introductory, I don't mean that it's kindergarten. I mean, this could start you, and you can reread it 30, 40, 50 times in your lifetime, and you'll still be learning. That's the book I talked about, The Might of the Thoughts. However, if you want to read the book that's called Introduction to Meditation, and I have that on my website is theyfly.com, and there's a shop there. You click on that book's there. If you want to read that book, that explains about things in Billy's life that are mind-boggling. How he lost his arm and at the same time incurred these other damages that have to be surgically corrected with anesthesia. I mean, this man, you've got no idea how he, okay, he's a cool person who's just very amazing because he's so dang ordinary. And then you learn this and you learn that, you learn that. Things in here that you'll learn even in other material here, ostensibly, which is for free on our website, about time travel, who he met in the past when he was taken by his first teacher in 1940s. The same teacher in 1948 warned about the earthquakes that are now occurring and coming. I mean, where do you start? So Introduction to Meditation, which is an introduction to how to meditate.
And that is by Billy? That's written by him? Okay.
Yes. And some of the other material in there is written by people who are doing his biography, publishing all the details of his life. It's fascinating. That's all. You know, fascinating. We all have to decide for ourselves what works, what's true, what do we know, what don't we know, and we should be critical. We can say, I don't know. Yeah, good. Think your way through it.
I just did a presentation last week, a book that I'm reading that was written in 1960. And it's called 170 Hours with Extraterrestrials. And that book has the opinions, which are very, very, very similar. The ships, the characteristics of the people, and the things that they're saying. And what they were doing for many years, but in the 60s is when this experience happened to this fellow. What they were doing is healing the native people, the Mayan and Aymara people, the Quechua people of the Andes Mountains. They were healing them, they were teaching them, and the people were very quiet about it. They didn't want to. They didn't want to talk about it. But he also did predictions of earthquakes down there. He tried to go to the government. The fellow, his name is Vitko Novi. He tried to go to the government to warn them about earthquakes and things like that. And that's why I'm saying it's possible that several people are being contacted, maybe at different times. This was in 1960. And, you know, I mean, we have to have an open mind that there is a possibility that these people are showing up at different places in different languages to different people. You know,
it's fine with me. My point is, what's the point of contact? It isn't for us to focus on UFOs or extraterrestrials. We're being, let's just say this guy's totally, absolutely true, whether he's still alive or media, great. What happened? Well, that information, whoever gave it forward, that information has to be vetted. If it's accurate, why aren't people paying attention? We're at such a critical phase right now. And this has been known for thousands of years that this would be the time. When you read what Emmanuel allegedly said about Meier for the future and what would be coming, and then you go, they've known a lot of this for a very long time. It's not to me about my contact. He said, well, my contact, you know, it's really about what is we're all connected universally, so we don't have hierarchies in our thinking. These are people simply more advanced. Great, what can we learn so we can move our evolution? If you or anybody gets the value out of any material that you can vet, you can say, well, this is authentic and accurate, then the extraterrestrial part, as I said early in the presentation, UFOs are not the important
It's
thing.
very, very important for us to actually really get this, you know, at this point in life, I think. And that's one of the reasons why our group exists, is because we're trying to really get it. It's so important. But I do have to go. And I want to thank you again for being here with us. And
Sure.
I'm definitely going to buy this book. And I'd like to invite you back so we could discuss a little bit more about it. But thank you so much for your testimony.
My pleasure. Anytime we can set something up and do it. So just know that obviously I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm not telling people they have to believe anything, or it's according to information in the case, this is the only contactee. But that, if there's somebody else now, let them come forward. Maybe that guy at that time was contacted by people. I don't know. And I have nothing against if he helped people. So let's just see what we can do to get past the extraterrestrials into what's the meaning and what do we do with it.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Namaste.
And thanks for being here, Mimi. Thanks for being here. Glad you. Sorry you couldn't stay longer.
I'm actually going to listen, and I'm not going to be present, but I am going to keep listening.
We can cut in if you have to. Yeah. Mimi's our organizer.
Bye, everybody. I'll be painting happily in my house.
And that's
okay, Mimi.
It's like namaste and now I must go. Yeah, okay, I get it.
I'll somehow try to chair the meeting without you, Mimi. I'm so terribly nervous, but I'll just do my best.
Okay. See you later.
So let's open up for questions and discussion. There's 16 of us here, or 15 and a half. So anyone else? You can unplug your mics. And Marie, here we go.
Yes, I have a question for a detail. One picture you showed, the cross which appeared in the sky. It appealed to me because at the same period, exactly the same thing occurred in a small village in the northwest of France, in a village called Dozoulé, and exactly the same cross. So, had you any explanation for that?
Okay, I cannot address with any competence specifically what happened in France. I will say more about that photo now.
No, I asked you for what you showed.
Yeah. So
here's this picture.
Okay, in this picture that we showed, Billy Meier is sitting in India, and above his head, off to the side, is a cross. Now, when we study the information about Emmanuel, allegedly the person who was the real one they call Jesus Christ, we learn that much of what's said in the New Testament, there's things that are very similar, but there's some very critical differences. The book was evaluated by this man, James Deardorff, who was a professor, I said, of meteorology, but comparative religion. He thought it was a Bible hoax. When he was done analyzing it, and this is getting to your question, he came to the conclusion that the Talmud Emmanuel, the book we're talking about, was the original teaching upon which the book of Matthew was based, and that it resolved over 350 inconsistencies that scholars had noted in the book of Matthew, and over 100 of which were not even noted until after the book, the Talmud Emmanuel, was in English. Now, let's go to that. So we hear about the crucifixion, and in the New Testament, we're told Jesus is crucified, and after 3 days, he rises up and floats up to heaven. In the Talmud, Emmanuel, they have a lot of information where it's described what is coming, and Emmanuel knows that this crucifixion is coming. He has been taught. Remember, there's this missing years of Jesus. What was it? Period of time, the missing. It's not in the New Testament. They don't know where he was. He had been taken to India by Gabriel, who was a Plejaren. Again, there's nothing to believe. I'm just giving you the information. He's taken to India by Gabriel. He's taught by masters who live in the Himalayas, who have many of the ancient, the original, older teachings that had been handed down for a long, long time through the extraterrestrial lineage. And he is taught meditation, how to control his bodily functions, because they, among other things, they teach him this because it will be necessary for him in the time that was soon approaching for him to be able to appear to be dead. Okay.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it was not really my question. My question was really about the photo you showed. I know all this.
Across.
Question was definitely about the photo you showed. That interested me because I knew another one.
You're interested in the cross itself in the sky because of the things that happened in France, is that right?
Because it's same at about the same period. So I wanted to know what Myers mentioned about the picture, about what he saw.
Okay.
Precisely, not about Christian teachings and all, just about that. He took the picture, so he probably had a comment about that.
Are you asking, because I want to be clear, I don't want to, ruin what you're asking for. Are you curious to know what Billy Meier said about that photo? Are you curious?
Yes.
Okay. Billy Meier has said nothing about the photo. He leaves it up to people to think. Now, I'll just add the last thing because I got that far in there and I don't have your other photograph. I can't see it to know, is it exactly the same? I don't know. But here's the last shoe to drop. It is said that the spirit that is now in the personality of Billy Meier is the same evolving spirit that was for the prophets of the past, Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Muhammad, and Emmanuel. When Emmanuel then was crucified and survived the crucifixion, and when Gabriel came and rolled the stone away, and Emmanuel came out of the tomb, he was in the flesh. This was hard for people of the time. They had to make something mystical out of it. And he, along with his mother, brother, and other disciples, and by the way, according to this, Mary Magdalene was a disciple of Emmanuel, not the girlfriend. And as a disciple of Emmanuel, Mary Magdalene was one of 17 female disciples who never found their way into the Christian teachings because that wouldn't have been too comfortable. Now, at this point, after the crucifixion, he and those who would be with him left that area and they traveled into other countries, which included Afghanistan and even, I think, Iraq, and they ended up in India. And there is a tomb in India, in Srinagar. Here lies a great teacher who was crucified in his land and came to teach us. At the base of the tomb are two, like, sculpted in images, if you will, of two human feet with marks in the center where nails had been driven through. There is a tomb in the area for Mary, who had been the mother of Emmanuel, who died ostensibly when he was around 48, and he then married an Indian woman and bore numerous descendants. However, fast forward to 1964, and the human being who's the current prophet for the new time, as Emmanuel was in his time, is sitting in India, not far from where Emmanuel taught and when he died was buried, and the symbol that represented Emmanuel, aka Jesus Christ, was the cross. So here's Billy, the current prophet, in India, the last place that prophet died, not including Muhammad, who died in the Middle East, and who was a true prophet, who didn't marry 9-year-old girls, and who came also, as the other prophets did, to liberate women. Of course, that went south with the way Islam went its way. So that, I'm just throwing in the interpretation that's strictly mine from looking at the photo. But the photo is of Billy Meier, called the prophet in the new time, sitting on the ground in India, not far from where the prophet Emmanuel, who had been crucified, lived, taught, and died. So I'm sorry if it's overkill, but I wanted to fill it out for anybody who might have been interested.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, anyone else? Don't be shy. There's 16 of us here. Got questions, comments?
Challenges are fine too, please. Come on, y'all. I know you're going to talk about it among yourself. If you have anything that I can contribute to, if not, it's fine. But If you have a question, a challenge, something that doesn't make sense or isn't clear to you, what have you, feel free.
Well,
Rolf is from
Oh,
Switzerland, 86, contemporary of Billy Meier.
well, I was in Switzerland. I was, I don't know how old I was. I don't think I was in school yet. But one day I woke up and I felt there was somebody in my room. And I don't know what they were doing. I was trying to turn on the light on my night table, but the light had gone. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, when the bell rang from the monastery in the island in the Rhine near Steinenrhein, 3 entities, which I thought at the time were ghosts, but they really didn't look like ghosts. In other words, they were not flimsy, they had solid bodies. 3 of those, what we now call grays, were flying out through the window, the closed window. So you're telling me that grays don't exist. But if they were not grays, then what were they?
Good question. I'm glad to meet you, actually, especially knowing you grew up in that wonderful country. It's a beautiful place. I wish we were free to go back there. So let me say the following. The first thing is, I don't argue with people's experiences. In other words, I don't say, well, your experience is wrong, can't be true. I say, according to the information in the case, this is what the grays are per se. This is what, okay. Now, a possibility, and I'm not going to tell you it's what happened to you, but I've had some interesting experiences as a child where I woke up and there was a quote unquote, this happened several times to me. It wasn't a gray, it was another kind of a so-called entity in the room, and I couldn't move to do anything. And the funny thing is, my mother, in the morning, my mother came in the room. My mother was Russian. My father was Austrian. And my mother came in the place and I said to her, what were you doing in my room last night? She said, what are you talking about? I said, you came in my room last night and you came to the bed and you bent over me and I was really, she said, I was not in your room last night. Years later, I read about a phenomenon called sleep paralysis, and that this happens to people for whatever reasons. And there are certain types of so-called entities or apparitions or whatever that some people see. The crone, the older woman, which was more like what came into my room, I thought kind of had a shroud on. It was really scary. And they just say, well, you know, we can't really explain it except what's universal to all these experiences. The people wake up or they think they're awake, they can't move, they can't make a sound, and there's a phenomenon going on around them. On the other hand, who knows? Maybe you woke up and there were some kinds of things in your room and they flew out the window. That's why I say I had my own experiences. I can't tell anybody that it was a being came in me, because I woke up and this thing happened to me. It could be a sleep, you know, I knew I was paralyzed, so that part was right. And I don't fully know if that means that when I'm paralyzed, I'm having the dream of this. I don't know. But my real question to myself or anybody else would be, okay, experiences. Some people call this paranormal or what have you. But as someone who wants to learn what's true in life, I don't care what I believe. And I don't care what anybody else believes. I want to know the truth. So I say, okay, well, what did I get out of this? What does it mean? What can I prove or not prove? I can't prove anything. I can't even prove that it happened. I can only tell you. I cannot tell you what it was. And I can't tell you what the value for me was. Meaning, if there was some being in my room, had it really been, I didn't learn anything from or about them. And I didn't gain anything except I was scared. And it's happened to me in my life probably 4 or 5 times, the same thing. And it really freaked me out. And I had one dream with so-called grays. This was back in about probably around 2000 or so in another home. And in the dream, these little things were trying to get at me. And I was trying to get away. And then boom, the dream was over. It's, life is full of strange stuff. That's why I say, I don't argue if you had an experience. I don't know the significance. If it was if you were able to gain whatever from it, that's your enrichment. You could say, maybe you'll say, well, I still don't know what it was. I think it's great. I say, good, let's have a cup of tea. What are we going to do with our experiences? Other than say, that was an interesting experience. So when Billy says I just finished with this. When Billy says there's no grays, he's saying those things upon which the whole thing was modeled, those were androids from that period of time. They didn't reproduce. No more of them were captured that he's mentioned. And they certainly weren't interacting with people deliberately because they were captured from a crash of a craft, ostensibly. That's the best I can do. I'm sorry, go ahead.